Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Adrian. Good morning, Chris.
Good
Good
morning.
Welcome to the Protect Your Business with Backup for Entra ID webinar, jointly put on by Central Technology and Veeam. I'm going to be your host today. My name's Alex Crowe. I'm the Cloud Services Sales Director here at Central Technology. Chris, should we start with you? Do you want to give us a little 30-second blurb as to who you are and why you're here?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Many years ago, about 20 years ago, I was one of the founders of CT. And over all that time, spent quite a lot of time designing and building solutions, up to the scale of the UK wide hosting platform we have, split over 4 data centers. A lot of that time has been spent designing the protection of the platform, of which Veeam is absolutely a core component of all that.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. So it sounds like you're here to keep our next guest, Adrian, honest. So over to you, Adrian.
Thanks, Alex. So Adrian Lowe, Senior Cloud Systems Engineer here at Veeam, coming up to 6 years as of the 1st of July. Previously, before that, I was at an MSP myself, and before that, I was at distribution as well. So got a broad range of skills, hopefully to give you some good value today with the Entra ID protection.
Brilliant. And you're the one that's going to be running the demo for us later as well,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll give you a top to bottom overview of the Entra ID and how simple it is. So looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Well, let's jump right into it. We're not going to do a death by PowerPoint, but I'm conscious everyone says that as well. So we've got a very nice compact agenda today. We're just going to, at a very high level, because I'm conscious we've got quite a broad mix of attendees here. We're going to give you a bit of insight, a couple of slides on why Entra ID backup actually matters. And then we're at a very high level going to talk conceptually about how Veeam protects Entra ID as well. And then following that, we're going to jump straight into the demo. So the majority of the time is going to be spent on the demo, and there'll be plenty of time for you guys to ask questions. There should be a little chat box where you can submit a question as well. So if you've got any questions either throughout or at the end, there will be an opportunity to kind of get some answers to those questions. So, Chris, we kind of talk about Entra ID being your modern identity control plane. So just talk to me about what that actually means in practice and what that means for customers and end users.
Yeah, so Entra ID, that underpins all of Microsoft's cloud-based services. So if you take Microsoft cloud-based services, whether that's links through to the Azure platform or whether through the Microsoft 365 environment, any kind of authentication that you need to access those platforms is that is provided by Entra ID, and also if a lot of people will use the Entra ID as that common point of truth. So if you've got third-party services that you've integrated with Entra ID for authentication, for example, we use many other cloud services here at CT, and we link them all back to Entra ID so people can sign on once, and then you can use that authentication session to connect into all of those other services, and it gives you a lot of control. So if you want to link that in with, say, how you manage your devices to make sure only compliant devices are connecting in, you've also got your conditional based access policies. But it can be one of those things where the importance of it can perhaps not, people may not understand or sort of take into account how important it is. Might go, well, I've got Microsoft 365, but it's all underpinned by Entra ID if you've got Microsoft 365. So it's absolutely essential that if something happens in there, someone goes in there, makes malicious changes, you could end up with a situation where more access has been granted than you're aware of, and also if something did happen and the worst did happen, you had a load of user accounts deleted, you might have your Microsoft 365 backup, but you'd need to get all those accounts back in place ready so you can then start restoring your data in. So it's basically like the spine of the entire those Microsoft based services.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that's a good terminology to use. It's kind of the spine of the kind of Microsoft services. So when it comes to Entra ID, what risks exist across the environment? I mean, you've got a couple of prompts up on the screen there for you.
Yeah, and the thing is, you could have a situation where someone's making a change. There might be something where someone's decided to script something to script access. So lots of people could have, say access into, if someone's got lots of members of staff, they might want to script something to give access into a particular resource. They might make a mistake, and then that change could be made to, user accounts they weren't expecting. Things could be deleted, and reverting those changes, can take, if it was a manual, to go through it manually and do that could take quite a considerable amount of time, and also it's having the visibility as well. And what's quite nice with when you've got the Entra ID protection solution, you get the daily report through, so you can have a look at it and go, what did actually change? What changes has it found? And then you could look at it and go, well, I didn't remember approving a particular change for that, so I'm going to go and investigate. So it can also give you a heads up in there in case of there's been changes made that you weren't aware of, either by accident or maybe someone's got into a tenancy. Perhaps someone's global admin account has been breached and someone's maliciously working in there to gradually open up entry points into an environment, and it would give you the visibility of those changes. But then also you can then also say with absolute clarity what has been changed, because the other risk you have in this scenario is what has changed. And a breach happened, with what have they done, and what do I need to undo and put it back to how it was, to be sure that I'm back to where I was in a secure position prior to it happening. So it can be very useful.
Yeah. And kind of combining those two things together in terms of, Entra ID being the kind of spine or the control panel for your Microsoft services, and the risks that exist around the kind of misconfiguration, deletion. You touched on the kind of malicious side of things. What's the potential business impact of those risks coming to the fore?
The impact can be quite high, and what's with the cloud-based services, there's a lot of convenience in there where you can work from anywhere. Go traveling, you can open your laptop and log in and get into those services. The downside is as well that if a breach happens, it also gives people who don't want access very convenient access into those services. So ensuring that all the access credentials to log into those platforms are secure is absolutely key to maintain the security of your platform.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. And in terms of, there are some misconceptions around 365. I think we've all run into them in our conversations with customers, and particularly those customers that don't use Entra ID as their primary authentication method, but still use 365 services. Why would they need to back those up?
I'd say going back going back more than 20 years and back to how people protected their data back then, the ones that have always been successful with it have always followed the 3-2-1-1 rule, where you've got multiple copies of your data, 2 different media, 1 offsite, and whenever that has been followed, it doesn't matter whether it's been an environmental disaster, a security breach, all of those scenarios, as long as you're following that best practice rule, you would always be in a position where you could recover. And the same is true with cloud services. And if you're just keeping using the native recovery tools or retention facilities within that cloud platform, you're not in line with that those best practice rules. And Microsoft, they have the shared responsibility model where they do a very good job in terms of keeping the service up and running and replicated between multiple data centers. But in if there was a situation where there was a breach and data got deleted, you need to go back to a previous point in time. That's not what they're there to do. That's where the third party tools come in play. So you can then say, well, I have got a copy. Whatever happens to Microsoft, which is an organization outside of any of our control, then we can say we have got a copy of those user accounts, we have got a copy of what permissions are granted to those people, and we have got a copy of our data. We're taking a copy of the Microsoft 365 backup, and we've got everything. So we as organizations, we all have both, as I say, a legal responsibility to make sure we have control of the data that we're looking after, but also from a commercial good position. None of us would want to be in a position where we've lost all our data because we couldn't trade without it. So it gives us that confidence that the data that we're responsible for, we can ultimately, whatever scenario comes along, we can get back up and running again.
Yeah, absolutely. And last question before we kind of move on to how Veeam protects Entra ID. Run into this scenario with a lot of customers on 365 backup in particular, where maybe they don't want to back up the whole organization. They want to create security groups and back up a subset, maybe for certain important staff, or in the case of education, maybe staff rather than students. When it comes to Entra ID, that it is required to back up all instances. Why is that?
It's an entire directory, and if you go back to say, to previously, you'd have, say, Active Directory. You wouldn't necessarily want to back up particular users. You'll back up the directory, and you may want to go back and look at what's changed previously. You may want to look at what permissions were are held on user accounts that may not currently be active. You may want to go back a couple of weeks, and the whole, it gives you a whole picture of what you have in place in terms of the access level given at that point in time. So it's to the point where you wouldn't necessarily want to just select a certain subset of users, because user accounts, because that might not give you the true picture of where you'd want to get to if you were to look to get back to a known good configuration or investigate an incident that's occurred.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree. So over to you, Adrian. So when we're talking about how Veeam protects Entra ID, what are the core components at a high level that can be protected by Veeam Entra ID?
Yes. So thanks, Alex. So essentially, obviously, users and groups, administration, applications, and the list keeps growing as well. So we've extended capability into conditional access. Obviously, as Chris mentioned earlier, if you went abroad or whatever else, just make sure you protect those policies. And the latest ones we've added to the mix recently was the ability to back up the device ID capabilities as well, and also organizational contacts. So all of those just keep layering up all those components within the Entra ID ecosystem, essentially giving you control and recoverability, essentially.
And they're going to be live, aren't they, on the demo environment that we're going to see
today?
So
I'll run through that on the live demo. So I'll show you what you can protect and how you can recover, and also how you can do the compare, which is what Chris was referring to as well. So it's all well and good with doing backups. That's brilliant and sort of an understated requirement. But it's also about what you recover and surgically understanding what to recover as well, and giving you the control of that. So that's absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking that to the next step, why is it important to use secure storage, and certainly use a trusted partner like Veeam to deal with things like data handling, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to what Chris said. It's having an independent copy, giving you control of the granulation of the backups and the ability to recover those. And again, so that hits a few unique sweet spots as well. So making it secure, make it service level immutability, so no one can actively delete it, and it gives you overall compliance. But essentially, it's to keep you running as a business. If you get impacted, or if you can't recover, or you can't operate, or you can't log in, that's fundamentally business impacting to you guys. So giving you the tool sets to control that backup and the ability to recover and keep you running and optimized and online is fundamental. That's where our business plays, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris, talk to me about why CT and have decided to partner with Veeam to provide the Entra ID backups.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand with the Veeam Microsoft 365 services that we've been offering for many years, and we're very familiar with the solutions. They offer a very reliable backup, and on many occasions we've used those to help customers where an incident's happened, and we've got them up and running again, as part of it. And to have that Entra ID protection now, it's that then goes hand in hand with that if we've got a situation where a customer's been hit, we could, and they've had a breach, our team can then use these tools. We've got a combination of the Veeam Entra ID protection, so we can get all the accounts or get everything back to where they were. Absolute confidence that everything's back to where it was, and then we can go on to the next step with the using Veeam's the Microsoft 365 backup to then pull all the known good restore points out of that and get everything back, or all the data back as well.
And final question for you, Adrian, before we hand over for you to do the live demo. So what's the importance of the point in time recovery? That's something I know you're going to be talking about a lot on the demo itself, but particularly when it is combined with kind of traditional 365 backup.
Yeah, absolutely. So the point in time recovery essentially is to give, and I've mentioned it a couple of times, is to give you the control of what you want to recover and when you want to recover, rather than just depending on the recycle bin or the general tools to keep you, as a default catch-all. This is the ability to set your own retention for a definitive time that you wanted, and then to pinpoint exactly when you want to recover and how you want to recover. But more importantly as well, with more and more compliance coming in place, it's also having an audit trail and the ability to prove that recovery and who's accessed what, who's recovered what, who's viewing what, and all of this just compounds to giving you an elegant protection service essentially. So point in time is the fundamental reason where we help with you, but then there's other benefits that sort of have a compound effect on that as well, to help your businesses stay afloat.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Adrian. That was really useful. Hopefully everyone's got a really good understanding of why Entra ID backup matters, and also how the Veeam solution backs up Entra ID at a very high level. So we're going to click on now. Feel free to take screen control, Adrian, at any point, and you can jump into the demo.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you, Alex. And so buckle in, guys. So I'm going to go through a bit of an overview. So I'm just going to share my screen, so hopefully you can see that now, Alex. This will be the Veeam Data Cloud, essentially. You'll have 2 access logins. For you as an end user, you'll log in here with your M365 credentials. So bear with me, because we're doing a live demo. There's nothing better than a live demo, so making sure everything flows nicely. So I'm going to log in with a CDX test tenant environment where I've done a few tweaks, and Chris, you nicely asked me to do some changes on the fly, so we're going to try that today and see how we get on, and hopefully propagation's on my side. There we go. We're already at 1 moment. Retry that again. So log in.
At least you know it's live.
Exactly, yeah. So it's, the alternative was I was going to do a recording, but if anybody wants to freely ask on a chat to sort of off-piece, then feel free to open your mics. So we've logged in here as you as an administrative end user tenancy. You can see that this tenant today has protection for M365 and Entra ID, because they go hand in hand, as we mentioned. We're going to particularly focus on Entra ID today, and you can see you've got 1 tenancy and one subscription, which is essentially a paid for subscription to cover that. Drilling down a little bit more, just as a high level overview, you've got a dashboard here, and again, as you add more and more services into your mix, you get more and more control and visibility. So here you get a summary of all your relevant workloads that you're protecting, but more importantly as well, you can drill down. So in this instance, we can say, well, what in my Entra ID estate is being protected, and just give me a quick snapshot summary from the top level down, so you can see what's being protected, how many objects are being protected, the relevant sort of protection schedule that's in place. And forgive me because this looks fairly vanilla, but in your environment you might have users coming and going, and therefore you'll see a bit more of an interesting curve, and you'll be able to track that as well. A key thing as well, which is many businesses are being asked to prove today, especially with cyber insurance and so on, is about traceability, about giving the ability to see and track those details and what's happening. So at the bottom here, you've got the recent activity and when backups have been successful, and I'll delve into that in a little bit more detail shortly. But again, it's just giving you a quick snapshot of what's happening. And if you did have multiple tenants, let's just say you had multiple regions and so on else, you can also drill down and manage those as well. Again, top level, as I mentioned, you've got a snapshot of the activities, and this includes fundamentally any backup sessions. So as you're backing up your actual Entra ID tenant data, or the logs that coincide with that, you'll get access here and see if it's been successful or warning, and you can drill down to see different details for that given user capability. On top of that, you've got the audit log trending as well, so you can see if that's been successful and access those details as well. So these are the bits that you need as and when you need to prove given recovery and protection as well. As you'd expect, you can filter this down as well. So through access management, data access, and so on, you can select date ranges. So let's just say you knew something happened 2 or 3 weeks ago, or you suspected it did within a given quarter. You can go and laser focus and sort of filter that out as well. And then you've also got the ability to sort of filter on timestamps or certain other metrics as well. And again, you can just customize and filter down exactly what you want to see to sort the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, and see what you need to see. So that was a top level summary, but I'm going to dive in a little bit more detail now. So for you guys, when you're onboarding, just as a prereq, this is already a pre-onboarded tenancy, obviously for demo purposes. But when you're onboarding and you partner with CT, you'll have 2 options. One will be CT can do the white glove and walk you through it and help you onboard in case you're unaware of how to onboard with optimal capability. Or on the alternative, you can do a self-service onboarding and so on as well. So Chris can send you an invite and invite you to that, and then you can onboard and protect your own workloads and manage it going forward as well. Here you get a summary of your tenancy and your details here. You can see my CDX tenancy details. You can see the number of objects that are being protected. And an object, as you might be teaching to suck egg, but objects in Entra ID will be anything from a user, from a group, from a conditional access, from device management, and all of those compound up, and we're protecting each of those almost in a 4-dimensional way, if you will. You can see a snapshot of the last successful backup, and then you can see it's provisioned. And when you do the onboarding, so this is the important thing to note, you'll select the region. And in this instance, you can see UK South, and you'll also select the retention you want for that given workload. So if you have a fundamental requirement to keep 7 years worth of retention, you define it there with the onboarding processing. It's unlimited storage anyway, so you can protect it as much or as little as you want, but you may not want to keep it indefinitely to help you at least focus on what's actually relevant to your business. But again, it's entirely up to how you define that as well. Again, at the top here, you can see a couple of widgets. Because you'll be consuming on a rental piece, which is by the by, this license user would normally be in a resale fashion, whereby it would be a pre-allocated number of users and licenses you still have left in the tank. On this piece, it flexes up and down on your subscription, but obviously, Alex, I'll let you deal with that. But what you'll see here from a consumed licenses, this is how many licenses that are billable from Veeam. And the rule of thumb is anything that's chargeable from Microsoft is essentially a chargeable license from Veeam. So with that, you might have shared service accounts and certain other bits that sort of are free from Microsoft themselves, and therefore they're free from Veeam, but we protect them as part of that schedule as well. So yeah, there's certain bits that are free and certain bits that will be covered anyway as part of that, but that's just to show what licenses are being consumed. And then your expiry date and so on. So it just gives you a summary of your current contract and protection levels. But if I drill down into actually what's being protected, this is the juicy stuff. This is the stuff that you actually want to see and get control of. So I'm going to dial now into your tenancy. And again, more snapshots. So forgive me for that term. We're in IT, snapshots galore. But you'll see if it's being protected and whether it's been protected and the oldest backup. So it might be that you want to know how long you've been backing this service up. You might have been doing this for the last 3 months and you just want to get a bit of a summary on that. Also, a little snapshot. Again, I'm gonna, next time I say snapshot, just I owe you a beer. So this gives you the total number of objects, but it breaks down per object and how many objects are being protected. So you've got applications, the users, and so on in here. Yeah, and then again at the bottom, so you're seeing a lot of repeat stuff of the top level dashboard, because this is now drilling down with a laser focus for your given tenancy. You see the backup sessions that have ran for tenant backups, and also, sorry, I didn't mean to click that. So if I come back up there, dashboard, for the log backups and the tenant backups as well. And as you can see, it's fairly intuitive. When you click it, it will drill down to the areas that you want to see. So how do I back up those, and what objects can I back up? So if I look at the objects list here, I've just clicked in the objects tab here. At the top here, you'll just see this just keeps growing and growing and growing. So for now, the immediate requirement was users and groups, and you can see all various different users in my CDX environment. You've got the application, enterprise applications as well. So that's fundamental. When Chris mentioned earlier, if you want to protect, everything's about convenience. And if you've got third-party SSO sign-ons and you want to have a single sign-on for your enterprise, you have enterprise apps that associate to third-party apps. It's key that those keep running smoothly. Otherwise, you break access and you can't get to your CRM systems and so on out. That's why it's also key to sort of making sure you protect those. But what we've recently added is conditional access. So to make sure those policies are covered, but also organizational contacts and devices. And by no means are we stopping there. We're going to keep layering this up as well. So it's always key to make sure you reiterate and follow the service stack as well as we bring those and innovate. What I will do is I'm going to go back to Chris, to go back to your point. You've got a couple of users here. So if I just focus on Bianca, I'm going to go to the M365 user account. I'm going to make a change, and hopefully by the time that's propagated and I've run a backup, I can continue with the demo and whatnot. So whilst we're just in here, let's just say you're an administrator, you're doing business as usual. I'm going to come to Bianca and I'm going to change her account details, for example, once it loads. Maybe that was waiting for her to load. There you go. Going to change her name. I'm going to put "you've been hacked." Somewhat very crude. Yeah. So there you go. So you've been hacked. Save the changes. And this is just an example of certain things. It could be just an accidental change or a malicious change, or even deleting the user. So I'm just going to let that sit and propagate. I'm going to jump back. So forgive me, I'm jumping around. You wanted live demo, so I want to make sure it plays catch up. And I'm going to quickly just trigger a backup in the meantime, and then I'll come back and explain that detail. So I'll let that run in the background. So going back to the different users, sorry. So whilst that goes and plays catch up, here's all your different users, all your different important bits. When that propagates, you'll see that Bianca is now being hacked shortly. But in here, what you can do is you can go and do relevant restores. You can do the compares, and that's what I wanted to show you live to show that point in time thereafter. So if I just do a launch of the compare, I've probably got a poor example here now, but I'm going to do a compare to show you the point in time where you're at with production as well. So just waiting for that to load. So sometimes with the compare, because it's a SaaS system, it's going to go and churn and just go and interrogate that M365 and Entra ID environment. So forgive me. So just whilst we're waiting for that to load, are there any current questions flowing just yet, Alex? Just thought I'd ask.
Nothing so far. So just a reminder, the chat is closed. We've got the Q&A section open. So if you look for the Q&A button on Teams, you should be able to submit your questions through for the Q&A.
Perfect. So again, fairly vanilla, and you've just seen I've made a change there, but I haven't to this particular user. But the idea is that you can then show what's changed in here. And again, as I mentioned, this is vanilla, but what would happen, let's just say Alex or Bianca in our instances has had the name changed. You would see that there's a change here, and then you'll be able to select that relevant piece, go and select why you're recovering it, and just say, I don't know, identified accidental deletion, accidental change, and then you can go and perform the relevant restore. What that's going to do is then go and restore. I mean, I know that was a vanilla restore, so forgive me. But the point being is you then get to laser focus the relevant snapshots and the relevant comparison, and then restore the given requirement. So I'll continue to process whilst Bianca's plays catch up. What you also have, which is fairly important, is the Entra ID logs. So this is the audit logs and the sign-in logs. And again, whilst that just propagates and plays catch up, this is fairly key for you guys to know what's been going on in your environment. You can export those again if you need to prove that to your relevant organizations or third-party insurances. And again, you can sort of select by month, but this is a recent setup, so I haven't got previous year setups, but you'll be able to filter that as well. From assigning logs, this is pretty interesting to know who's been within your realms and sort of accessing certain bits as well. So it might be that you realise that there's too much privilege being granted and people are logging in and you want to be able to make sure you get that locked down as well. So apologies, I've jumped around. I've jumped to policies. That's the burden of trying to do a live demo, Chris, with me tweaking the tenancy. So here, what you have is two jobs when you do the onboarding. You've got the ability to do the tenant backup data and the changes and the logs which you've seen. It's by default on a nightly backup schedule per night, but what you've just witnessed me doing already was selecting it and running a live backup as well. So that's doing a manual backup and running at that point in time. So yeah, so gives you that full control of that as well. I'm going to go to activities and then hopefully later on she's propagated, I can go and have a look. So again, just seeing more of the same goodness. So activities, you're seeing some tenant backups there that's just been executed. You can see that's just happened at 10:28, and you can get final details as well. So if you want to drill down into that backup, which this looks all rosy because it's all green, it completed successfully, and you can follow those tasks, and that's all good. And you can see what objects have been protected there, which is great. But this is often more useful when you have an error. So for example, I've got a failed job here, and you might want to see what's been going on. So again, it's more relevant than when you want to actually troubleshoot your environment or see why something's being a bit more inconsistent. So I was playing in a demo lab yesterday just for clarity, and I triggered too many backups at the same time. So I almost tried to brute force attack my environment to overprotect it. So sometimes you can be overly cautious. Suggesting. What's good in here as well for the resource sessions is now you can see that I did that live restore with you guys on. You can see that I restored a user in the groups, and you can see the details as well. And you can see the reason over here as well. So identified accidental change. I've then recovered that. If I was to then go into my live environment, you'd see that that's been resolved as well. So I'll get to the settings and just cover that off, and then I'll go and see Bianca's playing ball, and we'll see if we can do some live demos and show you actual data in flight. So from the settings point of view, once this is set, this is with the onboarding, you set the year, you set the retention, you set the frequency. It's pretty much set and it's defined. It's just to give you a summary and the details and all the relevant identifiers for that given tenancy. But you've got them permissions, and this is the key piece. So as and when we add more and more capabilities into your service, obviously it requires permissions. We don't just blindly back it up and take full control. It requires you to grant access. So for example, when conditional access protection came in place, you have to pre-approve global access for that application as well. So here, the permissions that you require for conditional access will be policy read all and so on. Again, for devices, just a few extra bits like with a BitLocker as well. So this is quite key. If you were to manage this live, you'd have to come in and just select it and then run the backup and then go and protect that service thereafter, if that makes sense. With regards to connections, once you set it, you don't often need to rechange this. But for example, with Microsoft 365, I had to reauthorize this recently because of Microsoft changing the APIs from Graph and AWS. I've had to go and reassociate that, and it goes and sort of associates the connections and so on. But with Entra ID today, I've not had to reassociate, but it's just giving you control to do that in a self-fundamental fashion to make sure you stay connected and protected, essentially. So with that, I'm going to go up to the objects. I'm going to go and see if Bianca is playing ball. So I'm just going to see she's changed. So her email address there has been changed. I'm going to go and see if I can do a compare and restore. I'm going to see how we're looking here, guys. So we'll just let that process, and hopefully you'll see that her email address has been changed as well. Any questions there, Alex? Just checking, just whilst we're waiting for that to process.
We have indeed. We've had a question around whether there's a trial or a POC. I'm actually going to come onto that right at the end. We've kind of got a link, but your account manager at CT can set you up with a trial environment. If you haven't got an account manager or you're not sure who your account manager is, feel free to either email myself, Chris, Adrian, or you can email sales@ct.uk, and we will get you set up with a free trial of the Entra ID backup with Veeam.
Perfect. So I'm just scrolling down here to find the change. Yes. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the current live piece here. So the service principal name, you can see that she's been hacked. So what we're going to do then is we're going to select a restore point previously, apply. So it's going to now, I should have probably selected that beforehand. So that will show you the current live one and the resolve, the restore point to resolve back to. And once that's just churned, hopefully you'll see a difference and it'll flag up. And then we'll go and perform a restore as well. So, but as you can probably see, it's fairly intuitive. It's very simple. Once you run the backups, you can have this up and running within the hour, if not shorter. You just go and select it, point it, onboard your Entra ID, and then run the backup jobs, and then you'll be protected. So you can see certain bits have changed. There's some identities changed there, and you can see here was the restore snapshot we want to go to, and here's the live one. You're like, oh my goodness, something's accidentally changed. So let's go and select that. Next. In here, you say, I don't know, as I mentioned, accidental change. If only I could spell today, sorry. Heat is getting to me. There you go. So accidental change, restore. And again, you saw pretty much the same principle before. You'll be able to go and restore that piece now as well. So we'll give that a minute. But whilst that's doing that, let's go and see how that looks in our dashboard. So we're going to go to the activities. We're going to go to restore sessions, and you're going to see that it's been triggered. So restore has been triggered. Let's go to the details. I think we're going to, it's going to tell you to go away until it's completed doing its actual job. So I'll just give that a moment. And then what we'll do is we'll go back into the tenancy and go, hey, am I up and running now? Am I resolved? Can my users actually continue as they were beforehand, before this change? And that's what we're looking to achieve as well. So if I just give that a minute while it's running. So I'm trying to think what else I can show you in here just for time being. I guess I think there's another question that's pinged in, but I've not read it, Alex. I've just seen it pop up.
No, that's all good. There was a question about whether this is part of the Veeam Data Cloud environment. So those that are using other services, etc., it's part of the same dashboard.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is part of Veeam Data Cloud. That's actually a key point. So whilst that's running a successful backup, a key point I forgot to mention, top right hand up here, once you've onboarded, you've got this little configuration button. This is about where you select and define your users in-house. So you can select users. If I go to users here, and in here, you can invite other users within your organization to help and to protect. And you can define the different roles as well that user has. So they can just be a viewer, or they can be a full-on admin, or you can go and define certain other roles as well and get very, very granular within here. So this is a predefined one. So I'm just trying to add another role. So if I just go and select, I don't know, Entra ID, restore operator, select the workload tenant. So you can select which tenant they protect. In your instance, it's probably just going to be the same one. Just trying to see as well. So you can select certain users to have certain role and permission. So in our instance, it might be that Chris is the administrator, but Alex doesn't need to do any restores and capability. He just needs to view the environment. And therefore, you can sort of segregate that with leave privilege as well. Furthermore, you can define groups. I haven't got any groups in this demo environment, forgive me, but you might have teams of people in your environment, and therefore you can define groups and set policies that way and create a group. You've got some predefined roles, which I've associated to the users, as you just saw. And you can see, again, somebody's eagle eye that said that, have you got other services in here? M365, Salesforce? Yes. But in our example here, we're just focusing on Entra ID. So you've got all these different current default roles for Entra ID. So you've got administrator, backup administrator, restorer administrator, a viewer. So you can define these for certain users and segregate that way. And finally, in this world, is because you're partnering with CT, you have the ability to, what I'm going to say is a value add, ability to co-manage. And again, Chris, you keep me honest here, but this is where CT can act on your behalf, not accessing your data, but the ability to help manage and co-manage and back up and restore things for you on your behalf. Or if you turn around and say, absolutely not, I want to work with CT as my trusted advisor, but I want to have indefinite regulation where only I can access this environment. And no, Chris, yes, we'll work with you, we'll come to you when we need, but I need to make sure you can't see anything in my environment. Then you can just toggle this point. And again, you can toggle it off, and then NCT can't see any of your environments. I can just host that subscription for you, or you can then go later on, actually our policies have changed, and so on. You can then grant access again. So this is that bit where you can allow that. So I'm going to go back and see if we're going back to Bianca. That's what it was, wasn't it? So Bianca, we're going to go find Bianca. We did the compare and restore. I was then going to restore. I did start a restore, sorry. Told you the heat's getting to me, so it's only AM as well. So we'll go to settings, sorry, activity, restore. I'll find where I was. So did I restore Bianca? Let's have a look. I can't find Bianca's restore there. So if I go and set restore, looking for Bianca. Confused there, guys, so forgive me. So restore session, I triggered restore for Bianca, didn't I?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw it queued up there.
You did, yeah.
I don't see it there, so apologies. So I've thrown myself off by going to users and groups. Let's go back to Bianca and see if she's playing ball now. So this should now, if I just come off and refresh it, the restore is successful. Going to find Bianca. There you go. I'm back on track, guys. Sorry, forgive me. So I've executed the restore, and you can see Bianca's email address is now gone back to the unhacked or unedited account piece. So forgive me. I'm just a little bit, it's thrown me here with the activity in the restore session. So I'm not sure why that's not showing. The user, sorry, that's where we're at. I'm Alex, I've logged in. I've gone into inception mode here, and I've triggered a restore, and the restore is for Bianca there. So there we go. Forgive me. And that pretty much concludes.
Let you off this time.
Yeah, sorry guys, I was jumping around there. So simple onboarding, co-managed or self-managed yourself. The ability to back up all the relevant user objects in Entra ID. The ability to do compare and restore. And then you can track the activities and improve the logs. And then you can also taper user privilege access as well to do as much or as little as you desire in your environment as well. But fundamentally, more than anything, is the ability to keep operating and making sure your Entra ID users are actively restored and functional as well. So cool, Alex. And with that, brilliant. If you've got any other questions, and I'll start sharing.
Keep the questions coming. We've already had some already, so let me just reshare my window. That was really useful for me. I mean, I've seen this a couple of times, and it's nice to see the evolution of new features and functionality coming along, for the Entra ID backup, but also, Veeam Data Cloud as a whole. I just want to come back to one point, which was one really good timing, actually, that you mentioned about the management from a CT perspective, because we had a question in about 30 seconds before about, are CT able to manage the Entra ID backup, and are they also able to manage other components of Veeam alongside that? So probably one for you, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. With the team we've got here at CT, we've got many hundreds of customers on these platforms. The team, they know it like the back of the hand. So we've got the option there so we can delegate the management access, and the team then, as part of the daily checks and the ongoing management of the platform, they'll see if there are items that have not been backed up. They can have a look. If they are able to sort it on your behalf, they can just sort it. There's then, if it's a case of they need someone with credentials in the customer's tenancy, they might not be able to do that down to a credentials point of view. But then what they can do is they can then do a screen share, or just say these are the steps you'll need to take to get up and running again, to resolve any of the bits that come up. But also as well, you'd hope it never happens. But the reason we have these solutions are for when the worst that does happen, having someone with you who has been there and done it many times, is really going to take the pressure out of that situation. And I think sort of the analogy is, if you've got a piece of string and you go from the situation you're in and getting back to the good position, if you're not familiar with how to use the tools to get up and running as quickly as possible, it could take a much longer path. So to have someone there who's got that experience. We've got run books that the team can lean on to go through all those steps, and and also help you get to a position of confidence afterwards to go, yeah, we knew exactly what had happened. We've backed out the changes that were made that weren't wanted or happened maliciously. We've gone through, we know that the data that has been restored is clean. To have someone to go through that with you is, it gives a lot of additional confidence that you're then up and running again in a good position.
Absolutely. And this is part of a wider business continuity plan, right? Entra ID might be the attack vector at one point. It might be somewhere else at a different point. So having, someone that is experienced in that, I typically say we probably see, one successful attack that we have to actively engage with customers on a week. So it's pretty regular. Unfortunately, we'd love that to be an awful lot lower, but it does give you that confidence, that we've got that experience. One for you, Adrian, that just came through. Is there any bundling options available with Entra ID with the 365 offering? I'm assuming this is already a 365 backup.
Yes, absolutely. So obviously we're working with yourself, so there are bundles. VDC with yourselves can bundle M365 and Entra ID, and even add Salesforce into there as well. So absolutely full bundles are available for you guys, and obviously for your customers to access as well. So just any bundles or certain piece. So what I would mention on there, which I was going to mention about clarifying Entra ID user counts, is if you do standalone, it's very important to clarify how many Entra ID users there are. And what I mean by that is M365 users are slightly different to Entra ID users. So you might have service accounts and so on now. So sometimes you've got a few more users within your Entra ID system than you do in your typical M365, which is absolutely fine, but just sometimes a bit of a misconception. To get that detail, and I'll come back to the bundles point in a minute, Alex. So to get that detail, just for anybody who's interested, obviously you can reach out to Chris and the team that deal with this all day, every day, is you can log into your Microsoft Entra ID Admin Center and apply 2 filters. So your first filter will be account enabled equals yes. So that means it's an active user account. And the other one is just to make sure the user type equals member type. Yeah. And that will give you this user number here. So 34 or whatever it is in your environment. That is the number of licensed Entra ID instances that you would require from the likes of CT. Why I mention that is because you can consume Veeam Data Cloud Entra ID in standalone, and that's the number you'll be quoting off. Or if you did the bundle and you paired it with M365, for every one M365 user you get coverage for up to 3 Entra ID users as well. So you might have to do a bit of quick maths yourself in your own environments, but usually the ratios there are quite good coverage, and it's just good to qualify as well to make sure you can validate and measure twice on those user counts.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a really common misconception around the number of M365 users to Entra ID. So don't worry, you don't need to remember that.
Sorry.
I can help you. We'll do that as standard in terms of the kind of sizing of the environment to make sure that we've got it accurate and there's no surprises on that side of things. So that concludes the questions that we've got. I'll leave you with a big thank you to all of you that have joined. A big thank you to Chris and Adrian as well. And as mentioned earlier, there is the opportunity to get a trial version. So feel free to reach out to your account manager, any of us on the call, or reach out to sales@ct.uk. We'll pick it up and we'll help you out with a trial account. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone joining today. Hopefully it was useful, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon. Thank you all.